Welcome, everyone, to the part 3 of 4 on our After Action Review webinars. John Vance here, along with Josh Bloom, the program manager from Blue Card. We're really excited to be here today. We have a great panel coming up to talk all about this module that's available for Blue Card instructors and how to make the best use out of it. Before we get started, just a few announcements for everyone. The fall Train the Trainer classes are now posted for Blue Card on bshifter.com. We've got additional dates at the Alan V. Brunacini Command Training Center in Phoenix. Seats are limited. There are 2 seats open in May, and we have seats open in June, and then full classes available in September, October, November, and December. So register before they are gone. Get onto our events page to find all the Train the Trainers, not only at the AVBCTC, but throughout the country. We have a new website. So we've been talking about this for a while, but just a reminder, the transition to the B-Shifter website is complete. You can visit bshifter.com for free command training resources and Blue Card content. This is for Blue Card users and non-Blue Card users. That's where our B-Shifter buck slip comes up every week with a brand new article, a brand new podcast every week, and other news as it becomes available. So make bshifter.com an address that you visit on a regular basis to get the latest for fireground commanders and leaders in the fire service. And then the Blue Card Hazard Zone Conference. We are very excited about this. Coming back to Cincinnati, Sharonville, Ohio, September 29th through October 3rd. We have a number of pre-conference workshops that we have announced, including the Blue Card Certification Lab. The Blue Card Certification Lab will be taught by lead Blue Card instructors. So it's your opportunity to get it right from the source. To see how the Blue Card instructors teach the Blue Card program. Also, a Mayday management workshop, September 30th through October 4th. A safety train the trainer. It's an opportunity to go through what the safety train the trainer program is. And then there's also availability to get the prop for an additional fee if you choose to do that. Our strategic decision making and critical thinking workshop, which has been wildly popular. And, we haven't been able to do it a ton of times out there. So this is one of the offerings for that will be at the pre-conference workshops, as well as an expanded command operations workshop taking place September 30th through October 1st. And that, again, is an opportunity for you to see how we expand from that first arriving company officer all the way up to having a command team with a senior advisor, support officer, logistics section, safety section, and then, of course, division officers with embedded safety officers. So going from the first arriver all the way to that larger command team. We'll practice doing that and give you a lot of hands-on opportunities as well. General sessions will feature 2 days packed with 23 unique classes. So here are some of the instructors on your screen right now. The conference also includes that Thursday night social opportunity, plus lunch and snacks provided. And we've discounted the actual retail price of the registration from last year. It was $515 down to $485. So you can get on bshifter.com now. And that's the general session price. It's an additional fee if you want to attend the pre-conference workshops. Hotel spaces are available as well. Anything else on the conference or any of those other announcements, Josh?
No, that's it, John. Thank you. That's all good.
All right. Well, we are looking forward to seeing everybody in Cincinnati. So if you're able to make it, it would be great to see you there. We're going to bring on the rest of our panel right now. Today with us, we have Eric Phillips. Eric is coming to us live from the oldest fire headquarters building in the United States in Peabody, Massachusetts. He's out there doing a class, took a little break for us to be on the webinar today. So Eric, welcome. He's a Blue Card lead instructor. And then from Arizona, we've got Chris Stewart, who is joining us as well. He's a Blue Card lead instructor and one of the principals, along with Eric, in developing this after action review program that we've been talking about for the last month or so. So we've been eagerly waiting for this. Data mining is finally here. We see that is live for the Blue Card instructors over on the menu page. Before we get to really the why of this, I think it's a natural point. Eric, tell us about what is now available here on this data mining piece, so people know what we're talking about if they haven't accessed their menu lately.
All right, thanks, JV. Appreciate that. So we're super excited to roll out the data mining program for the after action. So all of the hard work that you do to input your calls into the system, you're now be able to mine all of that data out to truly see factual with the data points of where you can improve, but more importantly, areas that you excel in. So with this data, it's only as good as the data you get out of it is only as good as the data you put into it. And we're going to talk about that today, some tips and tricks, and show you really what this program can offer from a few different strategic levels, from a fire chief's perspective, an operation or training chief's perspective, and then IC1 and IC2 point of what this data will mean to them. But more importantly, how can we do better on the fire scene based on facts and data, other than just someone's opinion on the fire ground. So when you log into your B-Shifter website there, on the left-hand side under the incident, the after action tab, you're going to have a new tab down there. It says performance review. When you tap on that, your department statistics will come up. One thing that we want to mention that make sure every instructor knows is that for your data to populate into your department there, you have to make sure that you click the finalize button of your report. So once again, it's only the finalized calls will show up for the data mining portion of the after action program. If you have 15 reports done, but you don't have 15 reports in the data section, it's probably because you didn't click the finalize tab. And we'll show you that here real quick, but that's just one thing to remember, that it's only the finalize tab. So with that, I'm super excited to roll this out. This has been what we've been waiting for. And I think by the end of the webinar, you all will feel the same way about the data mining portion of it.
Josh, you had some really good observations about entering data and what we're going to get out of this. So set the stage, really what the overall objective is, the why behind this, and what's going to make this successful for individual departments.
I want to start with just thanking Eric Phillips for all the time he has put into this, kind of the mastermind behind this, and how do we do better. And anybody who knows Eric knows that good is never, ever good enough, and that we can always do better and improve. So look on his face right now. He doesn't like any credit for anything. He's just a doer like all of us, right? We don't need no glam and no fame and all that. We just want it to be better. So we joke in our group of we live and are married to the fire department. Sometimes we hear that at home, but I want to thank Eric and Chris for their time putting into this and the impact that it's having and has already had on the fire service. So thank both of you for everything you do with this, and that always making it better. And then on the back end, none of this happens without our IT. Michael, fully engages and I think challenges us also with how can we do things better. And that's fantastic. So I'm happy to be on here. I'm super excited about this. It's been a process. I think today we'll connect some dots. But when I was just thinking about data and looking at the system, last night and then this morning again, Eric already said it, but you're only going to get out of the system what you put into it. So make sure that you're validating what's being entered into the system. You really need to understand the purpose of what you're doing and what your intentions of doing after action reports. If you're just doing it to check a box and say you did something, you're not going to get very far. But if you're doing it for really standardization and measuring performance, like Eric said, we want to recognize that when we're doing well, but we also want to make sure that we're improving in areas where we identify that we can improve. Understanding what you're looking at. So when you look at it, there's probably 1,100 or more questions in there. When you look at all 23 or 4 or 5 or 30 reports that exist now for every kind of communications that you could make. And now we're adding the ARF module to it, and we're building other things, but you have to understand what the question is. So that kind of just brings me to the point of standardization in your fire department. So if you have 10 people doing after action reports, you better make sure that they're trained and understand the system and that you're all doing it the same way, or your data is not gonna really align. The numbers. So Eric's gonna show some numbers, and numbers are kind of like the catch your eye piece, but then you need to dive into it further. So don't get your mind wrapped around a number at 30,000 feet. That really gets your attention. But when you see, okay, we're doing really good, let me take a look at that. We're getting a 90% versus we're getting a 59% somewhere, and I look at an area where I'm not doing so well in the system. Eric's going to show us today that you can really dive into it and see specifically what are we missing. And if you see something that's an outlier, because there's always going to be outliers with data entry, a mistake or somebody wasn't writing in the position, whatever it is, we need to understand what those outliers mean also. And one outlier, you could have a bunch of 90% and 130%, and you need to dig into that and say, well, organizationally, we're not having a problem. We're having a problem when we have an actor riding up in the lieutenant's seat, or we have an actor riding in the chief's car, or whatever it is. So, really taking a look at that. As Eric goes through this, one thing that we should draw our attention to is anytime that we have a lower level of performance in any area that aligns back to the NIOSH top 5, we should pay pretty close attention to that, right? So we know what the NIOSH top 5 are, and the system addresses, those NIOSH top 5. Well, now you can collect data to see how am I doing in those areas. So, if one of those are a problem for us, we should be, addressing that right away. And then, so the next one, I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but the fourth webinar we do is going to be about, okay, I have this data, I have all this information. What do I do with it? So make sure you don't miss the fourth webinar that we're going to do on opportunities and tools to help improve performance. And then really, my last little piece here is, if you want people to do better, this term operant conditioning, right? So Eric doesn't want any praise, but I gave Eric some praise, right? So when you give people some attention of, hey, this is really good, and then you share that and show everybody else, hey, this is really good, people tend to continue down that path of doing well. And I don't have to get in, nobody has to get in trouble, days off, written up, necessarily anything when they don't do something, but we have to give it the attention. So that part of it is, yeah, you suck at doing follow-up reports, so we're going to spend some time doing follow-up reports. Well, that piece of that is we're having that person who's struggling with that, or within our organization, and we're going to work on that little piece. So the fire department's one thing, and I think the professor Chris Stewart said it as we got started. We know what we want the outcome to be, and I think we can be helped, or we can use help sometimes with looking at data, because it is a science of its own. There's people who are, the whole industrial hygienist piece exists because that's all they do is look at data. So for you, the end user, looking at the data, just back to it, don't jump to conclusions. Make sure you dive further into it. And that's what's so fantastic about this tool that Eric's going to show us, is that you can continue to drill down and get right to the point of who said it, when did they say it, how did they say it, what kind of incident, all of that. So yeah, thanks everybody for being on here, and I'll turn it back over to JV.
Thanks, Josh. Chris, why does this matter, this data mining, from an administrator or fire chief's perspective, the person who's responsible for overall continuous improvement in an organization?
Well, it's, just like you said, John, what is the fire chief responsible for? The fire chief's responsible for the performance and behavior of their organization, right? And the two things that typically they are worried about the most is customer service, and I'll connect public trust to that. And then the other part of that is firefighter safety, right? So how are we doing at our job, and are we taking care of the members that are actually doing the job. So, we'll say as individuals or organizations, we're data driven and we're looking forward to it. And I think if you either want a fire chief's job or you're trying to keep a fire chief's job, you have to say I'm data driven publicly at least 2 or 3 times a month. But the question is are you actually really? And are we actually really doing it and looking at it? So this system is it's an interesting opportunity for fire chiefs and executive level folks and organizations to say, okay, number one, do I know and understand and have we validated our system for running the hazard zone? And if you're a blue card agency, you've had that standard laid out to you. Now, many organizations, though, approach it and go, well, we can't do all of it, so we're just going to do some of it, or we're going to do what we like, or we're going to do the things that are more convenient and more comfortable rather than actually doing the whole system. So you're going to see that in the data. And then the other part of it is just like Josh said, am I connecting how we're doing on the fire ground to the common causes of line of duty injury and serious line of duty injury and death, right? And so how are we doing with that? And so I've got to know and understand the system, and I've got to be able to evaluate in some tangible manner where I can truly measure that performance. And I'm going to have that ability. I'll probably do that through my operations chief and through my training chief, right? But they're the ones that are going to facilitate this for us. So it's going to give me the opportunity to not only reflect on our overall performance, but how are my folks actually doing that are both supposed to train our members and then supposed to be managing and supervising all of our members, from the battalion chiefs to the company officers to the firefighters, right? So it's giving me this holistic view of our performance. And then when we're doing a good job in particular areas, or maybe holistically, we're just doing a good job with this, there's an important thing as a fire chief is I need to understand why. Why is this a good job? And what is the consequence, positive consequence in this case, of doing a good job? And is that playing out on the fire ground? Is it playing out? Is it being recognized? And is it dumb luck? It's very rare that we have consistent dumb luck, right? But is it dumb luck? And be able to measure that, because we can't train that. We can't rely on it. But if we're actually doing a good job because we're making good decisions, we know and understand the system, we're applying the system, and then we're making good decisions with our actions on the fire ground to put the fire out, locate the victims, get them out, and protecting Mrs. Smith's stuff, then that's a fantastic thing. I need to, like Josh said, I need to reward it. I need to perpetuate it. I need to drive to that point. And then in instances where, hey man, we're not doing as well as we should be. Maybe we're immature in the process, in the system. We're new to it. So we're learning and developing. Or maybe we're an OG department that's been looking at it or doing it a long time. And because we've been doing it a long time, we've tried to outsmart the system and we've changed it so that we're doing something different. It's going to help me realign back to the standard, because it's going to be very, very easy when something bad happens to measure whether we were doing the standard as an organization with regards to our incident command, because this system is very clear cut. So it's a fantastic opportunity for fire chiefs and executive level folks to be able to measure that. And then if I need to turn around and explain things to the people that I report to, either the political body or the policy body for the city or or wherever I work, right? Everybody has bosses in this. Then I'm going to actually have data to say, no, here's what we do. Here's how well we do it. Here's how often we train on it. Here are the things that we've actually improved on. And, and by the way, when I talk about needing more resources, or I talk about the need for support officers with my battalion chiefs, I have data now that's going to support that. And I can explain why that makes me more effective at taking care of my community and taking care of my firefighters. So there's a fantastic opportunity for the executive level to use this up and down inside their organization to be able to either support what you have or to define, I need to be able to do better. And sometimes that's performance, and sometimes that's resources, and sometimes it's both. So this is a very, very cool tool that is being laid in front of the fire service at this point.
I think at this time it'd be good to bounce over to Eric. Did you have a thought on that, Josh?
Yeah, the only thing, as you guys look at this, sometimes it becomes a rat race in that front office, admin, the fire chief, whoever. But as you guys take a look at this, the dashboard is fantastic because you as an administrator can have access without being an instructor to see the dashboard and see how well your organization is doing at a glimpse without, diving into a lot of data. If you wanted more, you have somebody do that for you. But it literally in seconds, you can see, how am I doing this month, or how did I do this quarter, or how are we doing all together? So just something to keep in mind as you guys look at this.
Well, now would be a good time to do a demo on this. And by the way, speaking of the demo, while Eric's getting the demo fired up for us to go through, we will be at FDIC this year over in the Hoosier corridor. And if you want to schedule a time with Eric, just reach out to one of us, and he'll be able to do a one-on-one demo of this or answer your questions as well. So any questions you have, stop by and see us at FDIC. But we do have demo opportunities too. So if you'd like to schedule a time, please do that. Eric, over to you on the demo.
All right. First thing I'd like to say, Josh, thanks for those kind words, but it truly takes a team to bring this to light. I look at myself more of a secretary that takes everybody's good ideas and kind of organizes and puts them into a program. And I think that's what this is. I think this program originally started with Brian Smith from the Northwest and has made its way through LVFR and up to Blue Card. And it truly takes everybody's good ideas to make this the best. So as I've said in other webinars, and I'll say it again, that if you have an idea, man, bring it forward, because just today there was 2 ideas presented in class. I was like, you know what, that might have some value. Let's vet that out. Now, not every idea makes it to the finished product, but bring those ideas forward, because that's how this program becomes better and more usable for all of us. So appreciate everybody's help on that with the small test groups and the large test groups as we've rolled this out. So let me share my screen with you. The first thing I want to show you over here on the left side of the screen, under after action reporting, it's this performance review module that's now live on your dashboard. When you click that, it's going to bring up to the part I'm going to show you in just a second. But one thing I want to mention is when we talk about finalizing the report, if you don't see this finalized column on your computer screen, you need to zoom out. So on every screen, this is what it should look like. But if you're zoomed in too far, you're not going to see that finalized tab. And you can see here at a quick glance, this department has quite a few after actions. They have 19 of them in there, but they only have a few. Not all of them are finalized for whatever the reason is. But just know that only the finalized one, the ones that are marked green, are the data that's going to show up on their after action performance review module. So to finalize that, you just go in there, click the finalize button, and go from there. So as I click into the after action program here, I'm going to bring up what we call the Blue Card Fire Department. Now, this is everybody that's involved, Blue Card departments that have inputted data into the system. So what you guys are getting to look at today is a global view of how are we doing as a Blue Card Fire Department. One thing I want to point out to you is that you can have a date range. Right now, it's set at a 1-year rolling window. So this is 24 to 25, and I moved it back to 23 because I know there's some calls in here from 2023 that we want to capture that data. Why is that important to you? Well, you can look at from the time you started putting reports into the system till current date, you can run that report. Or if you are trying to get better at a certain area within the program for this quarter or this year, you guys are really working hard on, say, initial rater reports and fall reports, you can put just this quarter, and you can see how you did last quarter compared to all the training and effort you put into it to make a change compared to this quarter, and you should be able to get that data and see if you truly have made an improvement in your folks. So that date range becomes very important to you guys. when you're trying to see how you're doing, and you can manipulate that as you wish. When you work down the page here, you'll see different filter boxes here. This is all comes from the incident report page when you make up the calls. So for your department, this isn't going to make sense when I show this to you because this is all of the departments. So when I click on this, you're going to see all types of different battalions because that's what the whole blue card department is entered. But when you have just your fire department, you're going to have your battalions, 1, 4, 10, 5, whatever it is. You're going to have just your shift names, A, B, C, whatever you put it in. Your initial response for whatever that is for your organization is going to show up there that you guys have put in. The building types will be there for everybody because this is a drop-down box that we've made for you to categorize the 5, 6, 7 major type of building types that you have. So you can filter your department by any of these boxes, all of them or none of them, to get your data. This reference name on the side here is where you can put in for IC1 and IC2. So if I type in Eric Phillips, and I'll do it a little bit later in the webinar, and I type in Eric Phillips and I filter the report, you're going to see the incidents that are inputted that are attached to my name. That comes up for research process. So once you get a bunch of data in here and you're using this on a consistent basis, you can come here to residential. You can select that. You can type in Eric Phillips and you can push filter and you can see if that's going to suffice for a sign off for the research process. So that's where the data comes in. So whatever you put in when you're making up the call, now this is where you can start to mine the data. So for example, where are you going to use this at in your organization? Well, it's intended to maybe the ops chief says, hey, you know what, Battalion 1A, how are we doing in our organization for incident command? He can put in and filter this down, Battalion 1A. Let's talk about residential. And you can filter that and you can start to see, are we doing very well in certain building types? Is there certain building types that we need to practice and get better at based on the data just by using these filters? The other thing I expect or we suggest to departments to do is say, hey, Battalion 1A, you're at 70%, for example. Let's get that up 5% this quarter by doing some battalion training. Now that battalion chief or that instructor can come in here, look for his specific battalion and shift and start to see where do they need to improve at or where are they excelling at based on this data. So that's how we kind of see you guys using the filters and what it can do for your organization. Now, when I look at this whole blue card organization, you're going to see some dial gauges here. You can see that we have reds, we have some yellows, we have red, yellow, and green inputted into the system. Now, every report that is inputted in the system, you're going to have a score for. So you can see everything from initial radar reports, follow-up reports, assigning division bosses, priority traffic, fire in the attic, victims, status changes, strategic shifts. We have maydays in here as well. We'll talk about that in just a second. So every report that you put in, you will be able to mine the data out of. So you see these cool dial gauges at a glance. Red means, well, we probably ought to look at that. We probably should improve in that area. You look at yellow. Yellow is going to be things that, you're doing okay, but we can still do better. And when you get a green, that means you're doing pretty well in that area. Now, I'm just going to tell you the scoring on this, and we're still playing with it to make sure that it's accurate and it portrays the information correctly. But green, to get a green on the screen, you have to be between 100% and 85%. Yellow is from 84% to 65%, and anything below 65% turns red. Now, those scores, like Josh said in the beginning, don't really mean anything, but it's at least a visual for you to say, hey, we need to improve in these areas. So we're still tweaking and playing with the scores to see what's the best for us to convey what we're trying to with the scores. But just know that there's 3 different colors, red, yellow, and green. So now that we're looking at the blue card fire department here, we have 83 departments that have clicked the finalize button. Now, we know, talking to departments and looking at some data on the backside, that we have a lot more departments that have inputted reports in this, a couple hundred, but they haven't clicked the finalize button for whatever reason. So remember that if you have 150 reports in there, but you only have 83 showing up, that means they're not finalized. All right, so this is all drilled down information. Quick glance, quick, easy to do to get the data mined out of the program. So let's just take a look at initial radar report. As a blue card fire department, we're at 70%. You decide if that's good or bad for your organization, but let's just click on the number and it drills us down and shows us the individual questions that are rated for the initial rating report. So we're at 70%. That's our score at the top. But now you can see individual questions and their grading scores. So some areas were red in, some were yellow, some were green. This is going to be a quick glance in areas that you might want to try to target some of your training when you're talking about initial radar reports. So when you look at this, clearing the channel preference to radio traffic, that's what has been implemented in the last, I'll say, year and a half in the blue card system, specifically to initial radar reports. And that sounds something like dispatch from engine 1 with initial radar report. That's what that we want to use that ticket to get on the radio and let everybody know that we're clearing the channel and we're telling everyone that we're giving an initial radar report. You can see that 60%. So this might be an area that you might want to take a little more time and talk about to your folks why it's important and make sure that everybody understands that expectation that we want you to clear the channel and also let everyone know that you're going to give that initial radar report. As you coming on down, you can see the incident action plan for location. For some reason, we're at 52% of people in their IAP not given a location of where they're stretching their hand lines to. And you got to sit here as an instructor and as a professional and say, well, why is that happening? Is it happening because people just don't want to do it? People don't understand the importance of tracking position and function at the strategic level of where I'm pulling my lines initially, but what obstacles are getting in the way. And I'm sure that with a pretty simple conversation, you can bring both of these scores that are red, you can bring them up quickly with a little expectation by training them and then monitoring performance again. And that's what we're doing right here is we got to set that expectation. We got to train them. And now we got to monitor that performance and hold people accountable to that. So some things that you do good, you can see everything else, building height and describing the fire conditions. So this is a score at a quick glance for each of the reports will all look the same. Now, if you want to get a little bit better and you want to say, okay, well, exactly what is taking up this incident action plan location at 52%, I just click on that question. And now this is all of the reports that are entered into the system. So for the blue card family, this is all of those at a quick glance. Now, remember, for your department, you're only going to see your information. All right. It's just your information that you have, but at a quick glance, you can see all of your reports. Now you see an overall score here. This is an overall score for the whole incident. So this call for whatever it is an 83%, 72%, 47%, 86%. You guys can see the overall score. So now you will be able to see at a glance examples that are good for your department and examples that are bad for your department at a quick glance of what you want to talk about. If you drill down on the report number, I'll just pick one right here, 85%. Now it brings me up to this call right here with the example right in there. And if I click play all the clip, I'm going to play the clip of just the initial radio report for a good example for my department. You can see here as you scroll through things that were good, things that were bad, things that you maybe want to improve on based on that information there. So by a click of a button, you can drill all the way down to that information that you clicked in. But more importantly, you can get examples of good and bad radio traffic for your department. So that's the cool part about this system is you can just drill down with a click of a button and really try to finalize and see examples of where you need to improve and in places that you've done good at. Let's look at follow-up reports right now. So 59%. All right. Where do we need to improve at? Again, prefaces the communication with, dispatch from command with a follow-up report. Our 360s, you can see we're not doing too bad on that. Basements, 46%. We probably need to dive in that. But here's one that I want to pick on real quick. Confirming the strategy, 51%. This is tied directly to the NIOSH top 5 when we talk about this. Operating in the wrong strategy is we get a lot of firefighters hurt or killed every year in there. And when I look at this, if I drill down, I can see examples again, and I can drill down to the individual reports, just like we showed you earlier. But the question becomes in your organization is why are we not confirming the strategy in our follow-up report? This becomes an opportunity as an instructor, as a training chief, as an ops chief, to open up that dialogue with your folks and really explain why is it so important that we confirm the strategy in our follow-up report. Well, the reason for that is, and I think you guys all know, but we show up to the, in our initial radar report, I'm looking through my engineer's big fat head. I'm giving my best guess. I'm getting out of the rig. I'm doing that 360. Now I'm getting a look at all four sides of the structure, making a more educated decision on the fire ground. So there's fires we'll show up to that we say, hey, you know what? We're going to be offensive. We do that 360. Nope. You know what? It's not as big as I thought it was. We can be offensive now. This is why we confirm the strategy in the follow-up report, because now we're making decisions based on 100% of that building compared to just maybe 50% when we're pulling down the street and we only see two sides. But if you were to pull up this report and show this in a training setting to your folks and say, hey, we need to get better at saying the strategy, what do you think your folks are going to say to you? Yeah, whatever. Let's move on. Now that you pull this up and you can say, hey, we're at 51%. Do we understand why it's so important? And you give some examples and you're able to drill down here and pull up some reports and play some audio of what a good follow-up report should sound like. Now your folks are going to truly understand that expectation and start to buy in a little bit better in what you want them to do. So this is what we find valuable within this program, is be able to drill down and show examples of each of the expectation in that follow-up report and where you are as for your organization. Some of the other things, now the dial gauges and the drill down is all the same for all of the dial gauges that you click on. It's the same format where you can drill down. If I was a training chief and this was my department, I would spend a little bit of time on priority traffic for finding a victim and fire in the attic. Why are we not saying and communicating appropriately when we find those things? Normally, it's probably going to be because we're not clear on the expectation and we haven't really trained on it as much as we should. So I'm going to focus some training based on this statistics and data on priority traffic and victim found, so we can improve that in the next quarter or the next year, whatever that is for your organization. One thing that I want to point out to you that I think is awesome, and these two departments are exercising the program to its fullest, is when I click on Mayday. Two departments have entered in Maydays into the system, and you can see the statistics here. What I think is cool about this is that when we talk about it, one happened to be a real life Mayday and one was a training event. So remember that we talked about you can log, and when you first roll this in, it can be a live fire event or a live fire event. It can be a training event. It can be a CTC event. This department has exercised a Mayday in a training environment. Now, my hat's off to this department for doing that. They're at a 59% for their Mayday. That just shows that there's some room for improvement in the training setting. So when we get to the field, we actually hopefully get that same result or even a little bit better, because we now are practicing it in the training environment. Hopefully that translates over to the fire ground. So I commend this department for not only entering a different department entering in a Mayday, but also a department that is exercising the system in a training event and running that through the after action program as well. So now they have some data on that. So I want you to look at this chart and you kind of think of like, where is my department at? If you can't tell me right now where your department at with your KPIs, your key performance indicators, then you need to use this program. It's just like EMS. I bet you can go to your EMS chief right now and they can tell you all the statistics about EMS within your organization. I challenge everybody on this webinar, or the ones that are going to listen to it on YouTube after this, to ask yourself that same question. Where are we at with our organization and where can we get better? The last webinar that we're going to do, the fourth one, Josh hit on it, is now that we know this data, what are we going to do about it? And that's going to tie the whole program together with when you start inputting the data, we can now look at this data and interpret it. Now that we know it, how are we going to help our folks improve and get through the system? Josh, Chris, what do you guys got to add on that?
I'd just like to say is, as Blue Card as an organization, how important this data and information is for us. So when we start to recognize All right. Follow-up reports are at 59%, priority traffic's at 55, and whatever the number was there for priority traffic with fire, attic, or concealed space, or priority traffic with counter victim. Then as Blue Card as an organization, when we're going out and train trainers, we actually need to show this data and demonstrate this to our students and our students who want to be trainers or who are going to be trainers. And then we need to focus on, when we train on that, what are we talking about with priority traffic? What are we talking about with regards to follow-up reports? Giving the why, understanding the importance and the value of those components, if you will, of the system. So that gives us direction in a very similar way to what individual organizations should be doing inside their department to be able to direct their training. So it's a universal evaluation or evaluation tool for whether you're Blue Card and holistically how are we doing as teaching, because that's a reflection on how good of a job we're doing as instructing, as well as how good of a job is a department doing instructing and managing performance and accountability for their members.
Thanks, Chris. The other thing too that we want to make sure that everybody understands is that we understand that if you were to do a whole call, it could take you upwards of an hour, sometimes longer if you're new to the program, to input a whole fire call. If you break this down into small manageable increments and you're just trying to work on whatever that is, let's just use initial radar report and follow-up report this quarter. And you should be doing every initial radar report that's said within your organization, because that's only going to take you less than 20 minutes. It should be less than 10 minutes really to input that call if you have that radio traffic. So you can do just portions of the system. You don't have to do a whole call from start to finish to get that data out when you're just looking at a specific area. Now there's those calls that you run that sure you want to take that time and do the whole call. That's great. That would be awesome to do. But you can utilize this program in many different ways to fit your organization and what you're trying to do in the training section to get better on the fire ground, or let people know in areas that they're doing good. I'll be honest with you. The days of coming to training and talking about stuff that you think we need to improve on, or so-and-so said we need to do this better or that better, those days are over. You lose people right away when you're like, hey, I think we need to work on this. Oh, well, thanks for wasting my time today. That's not actually a problem. Now with this program, if you utilize it correctly, you'll come right in here. You'll say, hey, we're at transfer of command, for example. Let's pick on those BC and district chiefs a little bit. 71%. Is that good for your organization? I don't know. You guys need to decide. But let's see, where can we improve on in our transfer of commands? Asking for CAN reports. Repeating those back, going to dispatch. Now you can break this down and say, hey, chief, this is where we need to get better, or why are you not able to do this transfer of command the way that we expect you to? What are the challenges? What's going on for us to not to be able to do that? And then you're like, well, what should a good one sound like? We'll come in here, let's find one, and then we'll pull it up. Hey, chief, this is what we want this report to sound like. So this is where we find the value in the program. You can utilize this program in many different ways. It's just up to you to take the time and start inputting this so you're a data-driven fire department and truly care about our people and trying to get better at the incident command system that you say that you're doing. So one other thing I'll show you real quick. I talked about this reference name earlier for research processes or process. If I type in my name here and I click a filter report, it shows that I have done 2 initial radar reports pulled up into this system. And if I drill down into it, you can see the individual questions, things. Well, apparently I didn't name command on one of them because there's 2 of them and it's a 50%. So, hey, what's going on there? Let's have a conversation. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a fluke thing. Maybe you don't have a conversation. Maybe you do, depending on what you have. You can click on here and you can pull up that individual call with examples of what this initial radar report sound like. And then you can decide if you're going to count that for a checkoff for my research. So I know these calls, so I'm going to come in here and click residential for one of them. So I've got one report, an 88%. Is that acceptable for you and your organization to check it off for our 3-year research process? Just by putting in somebody's name and the building type, you'll be able to pull up and use these as your checkoff for your research process doing it. It's all put on, like Josh has said a couple times, This program is only as good as you make it with the information that you put in. You can make this super awesome and get all kinds of data-driven information, or you can put in nothing, and then you're going to be that type of department that brings everybody in and says, I think we need to do this, or I think we need to do that. So-and-so said this. Nah, let's get some data out of it, and let's see what we got. So that's the program in a nutshell. It's very simple, but what you see right now took a lot of effort by our IT guy, Michael, and a lot of input from people throughout the fire service, from down south to the north side to the west side, everywhere in between. We've gotten some good ideas from people, and this is the product that you see. I can tell you right now that there's still some things on the docket that we want, that we already have identified to make this better. And we've committed to you guys from the beginning that this is just the first version, that we're going to be rolling out updates and new things as we move on, because we want this to be user friendly and to be beneficial to everybody in the fire service. So that's it in a nutshell. I don't know if we got any questions or some other things we can touch on, but
Eric, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, we've had several organizations. Well, just last week, right? Organization had an incident and wanted to use just, the front end piece so that they could get some information out to the entire fire department, in a short period of time. And, it was initial radio report, follow-up report, assign 3 units, command transfer, a priority traffic with a victim. And that's all they did on the front end. But they wanted to send it out to one, hey, this is the expectation. This is what we want it to sound like. And then here's one thing that moving forward, everybody's been put on notice, like, we don't do this piece of it. But here is the expectation, right? So they did that, but now they can still open it back up. The person who made it, like you said, can still open it back up and, do a full AAR, from start to finish. So, I mean, we have some incidents in there, I think, that have 31 reports within the report. So, I mean, they put a ton of time into A to Z, from the initial radio report all the way to, fires out, and, companies are being released, and they were tracking status changes and so on. So it's you can make it what you want to make of it, because it's your program. So
yeah, that's exactly right. One of the other things under the reference name, if I wanted to type in engine 4 or engine 1, you would then be able to do that as well. So you can do it by engine companies, because you're putting all that information in there from the beginning. You can get all of that out. So you can utilize this program however you want. It's super universal to get that, and being able to mine that data out. That department that put 31 entries inside of a entry, now they'll be able to do something with all that data that's useful to their folks. So it's not a waste of time. It's actually useful information, and departments that use this, I think we all truly believe that will be beneficial now that you'll be able to mine the data out of the program.
Eric, will you just touch too on, so, ABC Fire Department, the gauges, these donut gauges will only show up if you have a report or more in there. So that's just something to think about. So if you go to your data mining, it's not going to show all of these reports until you actually have entered a report in every single one of those areas. So just something to think about. Your system's working just fine, but what turns it on is when there's actually some piece of data for that particular report.
Correct. So I'll use Mayday, for example. 2 departments have inputted Maydays. There's only 2 departments that are going to have a donut chart there with any data, and and each of that department's going to have 1 report for that. So if you had, knock on some wood, 10 Maydays for your organization, this would show up. If you've never assigned a division boss, this is still going to be there, but it's not going to be lit up with a dial chart there. So it's only the reports that you put in there that you'll see the dial gauges with that information correctly. One of the things, I think we already talked about the finalize button. That was an important part. Just again,
I think that's a good thing to reiterate, though, that it won't show up unless the finalize button has been hit, right?
Correct, correct. So remember that the finalize button is what brings it from the incident reporting here on the left side of your screen, brings the data. Once you finalize it, brings it into the performance review module. So again, if you have 20 reports and you only see 10 in here and you're like, that's BS, we've inputted it into the system, it's probably because you haven't clicked that finalize button that I was showing you earlier, and I can show you again. Which is right here. So here's our test page that we use for testing. You can see right here, these all red, none of them are finalized. So none of that information is on the performance review module. That's because if we finalize these, it would be false information in that performance review module, because this is our B-Shift Fire Department that we mess around and test things with. With that being said, just a review that if you finalize something with this report and I click finalize and I click save, that's fine. You can do it. It kicks it over the performance review model. The person that made the call up, so you can see this call was created by Michael. Michael is the one that can come in here and unfinalize it and click save. All right. So just because you finalize a call doesn't mean that you can unfinalize it, just like any RMS system or report management, report writing system you guys use currently. You can unfinalize a report, but it can only be done by the person that created it. That's the safety feature we have in there. So if I make up the call, I send it out to everybody. You can't tweak it and mess with it. But if I did something wrong or I did something that wasn't correct, Josh can call me up and say, hey, we need to change it. That's not right. I can verify it. I can unfinalize it and make the change because I created the report. So that's the safety feature in there for your organization, so people don't screw people over or mess around with the system, to keep it, to make sure it's as pure as possible. So that finalize button, that's something that is new since we've started this, and we just need people to understand that it's used to get it over to the performance review module for the data mining, but also that person that created it can also unfinalize it and correct any actions that they have within the program.
Got a question for Chris Stewart. So when we're trying to manage continuous improvement within our organization, how do we use this to manage accountability?
So I kind of feel like we need to be really careful with this, right? Because this has to be productive. This has to be developmental. This has to be like actually working to improve performance. I'm going to caution everybody, every boss who may have their hands in this, and how they use that. Because if we start using this in a punitive manner that is not necessarily productive, that is not designed for training, or is not designed to improve performance, it's just to punish somebody because you didn't do whatever right, you're gonna create an incredibly negative connotation to this. Now, can this be used true, like, hey man, we've gone over this 100 times and you're just not getting better? Yeah, you can use that, but that's not what this is designed for. This is designed to help that persistent and consistent development of our organization and our individuals trying to get better. So if you have a problem with somebody's performance, don't beat them up. First thing you need to do is go back and look at, all right, is the standard clear, and did we train them effectively? Oftentimes the answer lies in one of those two areas, and it has nothing to do with the individual that's actually having the problem. And so ensure that the standard's right, ensure that you've trained it effectively before you start getting pissed at your guys because they're not doing, or your folks, excuse me, that they're not doing whatever it is that you want them to do. So we're going to straddle AAR and operations here with Silverback leadership stuff on this, and say, listen, you need to be really, really careful. And the leadership part of this matters just as much as the operational part.
I think one thing to add on that, JV, real quick, is that as an IC1 or IC2, I want to do good. I want to do the best I can, but sometimes I don't understand why it's important to maybe say strategy again, for example, in the fall report. This gives that opportunity to point that out and have that simple conversation with your folks, where a pen and paper isn't going to solve it initially. but just having that conversation based on the facts. Because you come to me and you say, you didn't say strategy, there's a good chance I'm going to go, yeah, I did. Hey, we listen to the tape and it's like, oh shit, I didn't really know or understand why it's important. Let's have that conversation and see if we can fix that behavior or change it, so you truly understand the why behind something, and then you do better on the fire ground for that. So I think that's important, and it's going to bring this to light and make that conversation a lot easier. But it's going to give us all the chance to explain the why to our folks. And when people understand the why, I truly believe they're going to do better on the fire ground.
Well, as we near the end time here, let's go around and just kind of close this out with final thoughts. I think this is excellent, especially now that that is live. And again, that part of the module just became live in the last week. So this continues to evolve. And we're so glad that everyone was here today to hear exactly how this operates and how you can make the best use out of the after action review program. First, let's kick it over to Josh to have final thoughts for the day.
No, I think I'll just kind of close with what I started with. You're only going to get out of this what you put into it. So, and it's there to use for more than just fire. So, we got to, hear about a training event where they had a Mayday and, they entered that. So, the more you can use it and the more data you can collect, the better off you're going to be from a training perspective and an operations perspective, to be able to show this is why we're doing what we're doing. And, I love Eric's piece of, well, here's our training calendar. This is what we do every year. Well, why in the world are we doing that when we have other areas where we can clearly improve and that we need to improve? So I think you can compare it to, I don't think we've done a webinar yet. I don't bring up some kind of sports. So it's kind of like watching film. It's like we suck at whatever play that is or whatever we're doing. Well, that's what we're going to give more attention to. We're still going to exercise all the other parts and pieces, but we're going to give some more attention to strategy, for example, and talking about why, right? So then from the blue card perspective of this, us being able to use, really the 30,000 foot big picture, kind of go circling back around with what Chris said, how can we adjust and what can we do to help and provide support for the end user to improve upon, where they're having, challenges with the system, or their performance isn't necessarily where they want it to be. And we kind of already started that, we did already start that. So we've pushed out 2 CEs that align with doing better with initial rating reports, follow-up reports, and now the most recent one on, assigning companies. And, we have every intention to continue to release CE on a very regular basis. And much of it will probably come from looking at the data, the more data we collect with this program, of what tools can we give the end user to help them be as successful as they could possibly be. So.
Thanks, Josh. Chris Stewart, final thoughts for today.
Use this system to improve performance in the field, in the streets, but also use this system to improve the performance of your trainers. Allow the opportunity for your trainers to look at this and go, what are we teaching? How are we teaching it? And how do we get better? I think if we focus on improving our instructors, improving the instructor's ability to explain why, to be more literate with the system and understand why the purity of the system is where the power actually is, you will see better performance in the street. And so I think this is a fantastic tool to not only better how our firefighters and company officers and responding chief officers are doing, but it's also a great tool for inside of our training systems and inside of our training programs to actually make us better instructors.
Thank you, Chris. And Eric, final thoughts, and can you preview part 4 and what we can expect to close out this webinar series on our final webinar on the After Action Review program?
Yeah, JV, thanks, man. You always do an awesome job hosting these. We appreciate everything you do for us. I'm super stoked about the data mining on this. I think it gives us an opportunity to truly improve our people. We say we care about them so much, and what does that mean, man? It means a lot of things. But to me, it's holding me accountable on the fire ground. based on that expectation, based on that training. And now we have a system to truly say, hey, you're doing really good in these areas, and maybe we need to improve in these areas. And now we have that tool at our fingertips with a click of a few buttons. You'll be able to get all that data out. So we say it all the time. You can see our emails, our phone numbers are out there. Give us a call. Let us know how you're using it, the good things, the bad things about the program, because at the end of the day, we want a program that is easy to use for all of us. And if you have a suggestion, please let us know. We'll filter through it and see if we can apply it. But look forward to changes, because there's a long list of things that we want to make improvements and tweaks to help the end user. And that's what we're all about. So come see us at FDIC. We'll be there. We'd love to have a talk with you, show you the program a little bit more, but give us that feedback, because we're looking forward to it. So JV, the last webinar, number 4. So now that we know this data, what are we going to do with it? Man, it's so easy to sit there and say, we need to do this or we need to do that. We need to get better. The 4th webinar, we're going to take a look at all of the training materials that Blue Card offers and revisit some of that things and say, now that you know this data, what do you have at your fingertips existing? What can you use today to improve your people's performance in whatever area it is we're talking about? So we're going to talk a lot about the Blue Card program again as a whole and what we have to offer to you currently, and give you some tips and tricks on maybe how to improve your organization based now that you know all the data facts to it. So look forward to the 4th webinar. I think it's going to tie everything together, and that'll be next month, and we'll get that date out right after this webinar.
Yep. We'll have that posted and send invitations out to everybody. And again, these webinars also have the video component. So if you sign up, you weren't able to join us live, we'll send you a video on demand link immediately following the webinar, and also post it to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel can be found at B-Shifter on YouTube. So you can subscribe to that, hit the notification, and you get informed every time we post a new video on there. Gentlemen, excellent job. This has really gone far. The work that you've done, Eric, Chris, and Josh, to improve not only Blue Card, but the fire service as well. So I really appreciate the time that you guys have put into this. Excellent content on the webinar today. Can't wait to finish up the last one. Can't wait to see everybody at FDIC too. So if you are there, stop by and see us, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for joining us today.
And we got a special guest,
Who's that?
Nick Bernasini himself.
Oh,
Going
that's
back
right.
to FDIC.
Yeah,
The
that's
most
right.
interesting IC in the world is making an appearance at FDIC.
Yes.
It's going to be exciting.
Come by and see Nick. As long as he's able to hang out in the booth, he'll be there with us all day. So it'll be fun to have him there. Looking forward to it, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, John.